Hi, welcome to another leukemia update. I'm on my third round of chemotherapy here at Vanderbilt, and my second one was outpatient. So I didn't do any leukemia tapes during that time. I was busy with a lot of other things while I was away from the hospital. But I want to do one now and do this one on innocence versus purity. Innocence matters a lot to us Christians, preserving our own innocence, preserving the innocence of others, and especially the innocence of our children. But I think it's worth looking at what God did with Adam and Eve. While it's Adam and Eve's fault that the fall happened and not God's fault, we know that God foreknew everything. God foreknew that Adam and Eve would fall. And he foresaw the redemption through Christ. And his plan, God's plan, was not that man would go on in a state of innocence forever. In the end, what God is after is that we would be a pure people, that we would be not innocent, but pure. That we wouldn't be preserved from temptation, but that we would be preserved through temptation. There's a difference between innocence and purity. You know, we can do what we want to preserve our children from this movie, that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, we shouldn't be watching terrible movies. But in the end, I was in the military for 5 years, 1/10 of my life. And I am pretty certain that I heard more F words on the job in the military in those 5 years than I've heard in the whole entire 45 years outside of my years in the military. Being in the world means that there's things that you cannot be preserved innocent from. You can be preserved pure from those things. You can trust in God, not fall into temptations, be in the world but not of it. But innocence cannot be preserved. And with our children, we have to equip our children so that they become pure adults, not innocent adults, pure adults. There's some, not even temptations, there's some truths of life that they need to be made aware of so that they are equipped to deal with those truths of life. For example, I know of one man who wrote about the fact that he taught his kids about pornography, talked to them, that there are evil people who misuse women. There are evil people who sell women for their bodies. They mistreat them, and they're terrible people, and you should never, ever be like them. He even drove him down a strip one time where prostitutes hung out. And one day, his kids ran across a pornographic magazine in the woods. And because these young boys were equipped, they knew what to do. They went backwards with something. I guess maybe they learned that story from Noah, the story of Noah and his 2 sons covering up his nakedness. Walked backwards with something, covered it up, brought the magazine back to the house and burned it without ever looking at it. How many kids do that? But those kids did that because they were prepared to go, that's evil, and I need to stay away from that. So I want to put in front of us that God is not after innocence. He's not after covering our eyes from what's going on in the world because we have to help people with what's going on in the world. He is after purity. He's after the redemption of Christ, that we would overcome the world.